Okay, let's get started. Thank you, everyone. My name is Laura Doe. I'm the grants manager for Arts Mid-Hudson. Thank you so much for joining us to review information about the Ulster County Cultural Services and Promotion Fund. Uh, we'll go over the specific funding opportunity, including the different details about the two funding areas that this grant covers: capacity building and programmatic support. And there will be a Q&A at the end. We just ask that you hold all your questions till the end, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. Okay, so again, in this presentation today, myself, Laura Doe, Grants Manager, and Vanessa Capuccio-Bear is our funding coordinator, and you can reach both of us. For any grants-related questions, we both monitor this inbox, grants@artsmidhudson.org, or you can call 845-454-3222, extension 11, to reach us. All right, so in this presentation this afternoon, we'll go over the Ulster County Cultural Services and Promotion Fund purpose, important dates, the guidelines and application for the capacity building and the programmatic support categories, and then some tips on submitting an application for funding. And then there'll be a Q&A at the end where you can ask any questions that might be lingering or that perhaps were not addressed or elaborated upon in the presentation. We offer Zoom Q&A sessions over the next couple of weeks leading up to the grants deadline of July 21st. An up-to-date schedule and RSVP link are on our website for the landing page for this grant. And RSVPing ensures you receive updates and reminders about upcoming drop-in Q&A sessions. And so just so you're aware, these sessions, if you've never been to one before, these sessions are really very informal. You can drop in or out at any time during that hour-long period. And these are really wonderful opportunities to hear from other applicants and to really, get ideas about and really share, in a very informal community setting, just any questions you have and your project direction. And like I said, these are very informal. You don't have to stay the whole time, and you can attend any number of them, whatever is useful to you. And so those are on the website, the dates and times for those Q&A sessions. So for all of our funding opportunities, we offer accommodations and assistance. If you need assistance, specific accommodations such as translation services, large text documents, or technical support with our platforms, just to name a few examples. We also offer one-on-one appointments where you can brainstorm ideas, discuss specific questions, or receive feedback on a draft or budget. We really recommend signing up for a one-on-one session, especially if you've never done so before, whether that's a draft review or technical or just brainstorming your project ideas. You don't even have to come with a fully fledged project or draft. You can make an appointment to discuss your project ideas and brainstorm. We recommend that highly because this is all of the grants are competitive. This is a highly competitive program with high quality applications across the board. So getting a second set of eyes on your proposal will give you that just extra edge, that extra vote of confidence to really set yourself up for success and do your absolute best with this funding opportunity. You can book these appointments using our booking form at artsmidhudson.youcanbookme, or you can click the link in our email signatures in GrantSat. So from our GrantSat email, we have that link in our email signatures, and you can also sign up for these appointments on our website for this funding opportunity. And actually, Vanessa, if you wouldn't mind just dropping that link in the chat box at some point, just so people can easily find it, that'd be awesome. You can cross-reference and see what I mean. You can even sign up for one during the session if you want. And really, this goes back to our commitment, Arts Mid-Hudson's commitment to grant assistance. Free and varied assistance is available to anyone who asks for it within our service area and also outside our service area too. So during these grant assistance appointments, you can put together a project proposal. There's really anytime you work with Arts Mid-Hudson, there's always opportunities to network and get helpful feedback about your grant proposal. And just in general, if you aren't already, you can sign up for our email list, and then you'll find out basically down to the minute when funding opportunities are announced, when networking opportunities come up, like the different mixers that we have throughout the year, different events. And again, that'll really help with the networking and just with deepening your understanding of the different opportunities that are available at Arts Mid-Hudson, grants and beyond. Okay, so now we will get into the purpose of the Ulster County Cultural Services and Promotion Fund, and I'll call it UCCSPF going forward. UCCSPF is a resource dedicated to maintaining artistic and cultural assets in Ulster County, and the focus of this grant is to support capacity building initiatives and programmatic support. The following slides cover information applicable to both of these funding categories, both capacity building and programmatic support. Where does this funding come from? The funding source is made available by the Ulster County Legislature and administered by Arts Mid-Hudson. The goals of UCCSPF include supporting nonprofit organizations in Ulster County in efforts to grow, expand, or improve their work, to positively impact the arts and cultural scene of Ulster County by strengthening established arts organizations that benefit residents and visitors, support the incredible diversity of backgrounds, artistic mediums, and ways of presenting arts and cultural programming in Ulster County, and to support activities that increase participation in the arts among residents and visitors, particularly for individuals from historically underrepresented communities. And to give you a sense of eligibility at a glance, and this applies, these are the eligibility requirements that apply to both the capacity buildings, CBI abbreviated, and programmatic support, or PS abbreviated. And this is a really nice checkpoint. If you've never applied for these grants before and you're not 100% sure if you qualify and maybe you haven't digested the guidelines yet, this slide is a really good checkpoint to determine your eligibility. All applicants must be a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization that identifies the arts and/or cultural services as the primary activity in the organization's mission. Secondly, applicant organizations must have a permanent address or be incorporated in Ulster County. Thirdly, organizations must have at least 3 years of programmatic history, and they must have a board of directors or other governing body that meets to determine policy. Must have a non-discrimination policy in place and may not discriminate based on race, color, national origin, religious belief, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, or disability. And lastly, must be in adherence to the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. Now, this slide is, of course, not a substitute for fully reading and digesting the guidelines, which, it just makes sense. Please take the time if you're going to apply for this grant to really digest and read the guidelines above and beyond this slide. But this will, like I said, is, I think, a helpful checkpoint. All right, and then ineligible expenses. I really wanted to mention this at the top too, because this is another helpful checkpoint. These ineligible expenses apply to both capacity building and programmatic support. So there are following expenses that UCCSPF is unable to fund include fundraising events, contingency funds, lobbying expenses, or startup or seed funding for the establishment of new organizations, fees paid to board members of the applicant organization, contests or competitions, cash prizes, juror fees, fellowships, scholarships, stipends or awards, trophies, certificates, or re-grants by applicants to fund other activities, operating expenses of privately owned facilities such as homes or private studios, entertainment costs, including receptions and food, and acquisitions of works of art, commissioning of new work, or creation of new work. Again, a helpful checkpoint for determining eligibility. And some important dates coming up for UCCSPF. Mark in your calendars. The deadline for UCCSPF is July 21st of 2026. Online submission process closes at 11:59 p.m. on our submittable platform, no exceptions. And all funded initiatives must take place between September 1st of 2026 and August 31st of 2027. And this is written in the guidelines, but all projects must be initiated by December 31st of 2026. Okay, so we'll go into the capacity building initiatives next. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned this at the top, but if at any point you have questions or any technical difficulties, we'll do our best to address them. If you want to just drop them in the chat box, Vanessa will address them as they go. And also, we can make sure to address those questions at the end as well if they're more in depth about the guidelines. So feel free to drop those in the chat box as I present. All right, we're going to go into the first funding category for UCCSPF, which is the capacity building initiatives. So now I'm going to go into specifically really going into the eligibility specific to CBI. So capacity building initiatives are intended to help nonprofit arts organizations work more effectively and better meet their mission. Initiatives may create a new area of work, they may develop new strategies, or enhance current programming in a significant manner. Please note, applicants may submit one application either for capacity building or programmatic support. And just keep in mind also that capacity building initiatives are the priority for funding. And so in numbers, that amounts to about 70% of funding must go towards capacity building. I will say that applicants have a better odds of funding in this category compared to programmatic support, given this percentage allocation. And let's see, just another other thing I want to add, competitive applications should show how organizational growth leads to better public services. You really want to think of it as, does my project create a community ripple effect in that way? And yeah, like I said, applicants may submit only one application, choosing either capacity building or programmatic support. Okay, other key details. The funding amount, funding requests can range from $2,500 to $7,500. There is no cash match required. Applicants may request 100% of their initiative budget. For expenses, funds cannot cover expenses incurred or paid for outside the funding period. So any expenses incurred outside the period of September 1st of 2026 to August 31st of 2027 are ineligible and not possible. The mediums, this funding opportunity is open to all expressive artistic disciplines, including but not limited to visual, performing, written, digital, traditional, and experimental artistic mediums. To go into the eligible applicants, all applicants must be a registered nonprofit with arts and/or cultural services as the primary mission activity. Applicants must be incorporated or have a permanent address in Ulster County and have at least 3 years of programmatic history. In terms of governance, the applicants must have a board of directors that meets to determine policy. And of course, they must have a board-approved non-discrimination policy and adhere to the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. Ineligible applicants for the capacity building initiative include individuals, specifically for capacity building. Programmatic's a little different, but we'll go into that later. Public school districts are ineligible, colleges and universities, libraries, units of government agencies, and social service organizations are ineligible for CBI. And then groups that have failed to submit required final reports for previous Arts Mid-Hudson grants are also ineligible until those reports are received. And this is especially timely because this is a time of year when other grant reports are becoming due. So if you are interested in applying for UCCSPF and you may have received other grants, off the top of my head, last year's UCCSPF grant or Arts and Culture Project grant, definitely you'll want to make sure that you're up to date with those grants, your grant reporting. And if you're in any way unsure, you know that you can always email grants@artsmidhudson.org just to ask, hey, am I good? And am I okay? Is everything up to date? If you're not sure. There is no shame in reaching out and asking. We would much rather that you reach out than just assume that you're good, but you're not, and then miss out on a funding opportunity. Always reach out. It's never a problem. And to give examples of eligible initiatives for the capacity building may include, but are not limited to, strategic planning, board development, new and expanded staff positions, capital improvements, technology website or equipment upgrades, marketing plan development, and DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility training. So those are just some examples, just to give you a jumping off point. I want to identify something that comes up from time to time with capacity building applications, and that is that I strongly recommend, to be the most competitive and to get the highest score possible, that you focus your proposal on a specific initiative, as opposed to what we see sometimes, which is combining different initiatives into one application. An example could be combining equipment and staffing or job employment needs, which can really, to a panel's eyes, begin to look like general operating support, which is far less competitive than having a cohesive plan. So in short, and this is part of the reason why we offer brainstorming sessions and draft reviews. If you're in any way unsure, if you think, oh, is this too scattered? Is this not focused enough? Reach out to us. We'll be happy to provide an extra set of eyes. The technical assistance, of course, is not a substitute for panel review. And, of course, we can never guarantee an outcome based on what we review, but we will certainly help you develop your proposal to the farthest extent of the guidelines. Let's see. And inclusion through CBI is a big factor that I want to spend some time on. So Arts Mid-Hudson, our strategic inclusion is a key priority for this grant. Arts Mid-Hudson strives towards broad inclusion and true access to arts and cultural programming for all. Capacity building initiatives are wide-ranging, and they offer opportunities for organizations to be more inclusive. Arts Mid-Hudson encourages thoughtful outreach to all groups in our region, and we strive to seek input from diverse perspectives when undertaking capacity building initiatives. This may include specific outreach to historically underserved audiences, and these are groups that who may have limited access to arts programs, services, or resources due to location, race, economic status, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, religion, disability, or other factors. And of course, all throughout this process, we encourage applicants as they're designing inclusive and really well thought out proposals to seek input from diverse points of view and underserved groups when undertaking these initiatives to really ensure that this capacity building work is relevant to the community and reflects the actual needs of the community. So I'm going to provide a couple of other examples of different initiatives, different types of proposals that we see and how you can position them to be competitive. So one tip for new or expanded staff positions is really to make a case for why this hire is important to the organization now. Really consider because a lot of people do apply to this CBI to really hire for a job, hire for a specific staff position, or a short-term or limited-term consultant. So definitely to set yourself up for success and really align with the CBI priorities, you'll want to make a case for why this hire is important to the organization now. You'll want to consider how your constituents will benefit from this hire, or how you might be able to expand your audience or improve services to the public. You'll want to specify in the proposal, how will the job be posted? Will it be seen by a broad and diverse range of audiences? And what will the new staff or consultant accomplish? Of course, you also want to consider the sustainability of this investment as well. Since the CBI grants range from $2,500 to $7,500, we recommend explaining how the position will be sustained long-term through other fundraising. If this is a one-time consultancy, you'll want to explain in the proposal how the impact of this investment will be sustained by the organization into the future. You may not plan on, keeping that consultant forever, maybe, but how will the consultant's work build upon your future initiatives so that they can be sustained, so that this investment has returns for your organization and the community and people that your organization impacts. And then documentation is always helpful when you're making an ask for staffing or a consultant. We strongly recommend including a job description as one of the supplementary materials, including you could show old versus new tasks for expansions, if it's an expansion on a current job. and a resume for the person if they're already selected. And if you're looking to hire a consultant, again, a resume is helpful. It can also be helpful, depending on the situation, to include a scope of services for the consultant, i.e., a list of the services that the consultant will be offering your nonprofit that have been mutually agreed upon. This can be helpful document to really show your initiative's feasibility, to show that you have an execution plan between your organization and the consultant for the work that you intend to do. All right, and now here are some tips for a competitive proposal around technology or equipment upgrades. You'll want to explain the organization's staff capacity to use and maintain the new technology or equipment. You'll want to consider how accessible the equipment is for a variety of the staff who will be using it. You'll want to consider if you need a customized solution, which may be more costly, or identify an off-the-shelf alternative. And of course, you'll want to provide clarity in the proposal on which is best for the organization's needs. The benefit to the audience and the organization, the way that the organization or audience would benefit from the equipment, of course, needs to be clearly defined in the proposal. And it's also helpful to mention in the proposal what the lifespan of the new equipment is. As the panel is reading your proposal, they really want to understand the degree to which this equipment is really going to help you reach your organizational goals long term. So the lifespan is a really helpful indicator of long-term impact. And then marketing is another kind of common kind of ask that we see for the CBI proposals. I will say that of course, you want to be thoughtful, research-based and realistic in how you describe your marketing initiatives. The most successful marketing or outreach initiatives tend to be data-driven in the sense that they are thoughtful, research-based, and realistic. We recommend using current numbers, such as audience size, email click rates, and social engagement to set realistic growth goals. Really starting with the numbers that you have and thinking about, okay, well, how can I expand these numbers in a way that's realistic to show growth? And as you're analyzing and considering your audience context and preparing this proposal and shaping your marketing and outreach initiative, we would recommend focusing on demographic data of your actual audience rather than general county statistics. That is, if that's possible. Different organizations are in different levels of maturity with their data gathering and with just really measuring their organization's impact. I realize if you only have 3 years under your belt, you may be in different places with this. So just do your best. These are really best practices, things to shoot for, but focusing on actual demographic data will always be more impactful to a panel. I will say that. It's more indicative of the impact that you've made so far and the impact that you're projected to make with additional interventions. And then relevance, of course, ensuring programming is actually relevant to the group that you are trying to reach. Of course, you want to have clarity in the group that you're trying to reach. Some ways to establish relevance can include if a staff or consultant role is connected to the marketing or outreach ask. Hiring individuals from the group to which you are trying to reach out is one way to achieve that. Or you can seek input from individuals from historically underrepresented groups and or from the groups that you seek to reach. Where did these individuals spend their time? Where are they likely to actually see these marketing initiatives? Is that a Facebook group? Is that a community board? Is that the local YMCA? These are just examples, but those are things that you'll want to know and then convey in the proposal to show that you are planned to make the impact that you intend to. And then analyzing and articulating in your proposal the relevancy of programming to the audiences that you are trying to reach, and clearly explaining your reasoning for various promotional tools. What we see sometimes is, these Facebook ads, that's what we're doing, and now we've checked our marketing box. But that's not always the most effective approach, and that's not always the most, in terms of making the impact that you intend to make or in making the best use of your funds. It's more nuanced than that, and we know this. So you really want to clearly explain your reasoning for choosing the promotional tools that you choose to really make the connection between, why you're spending this amount of money on this marketing tool and who it's actually going to reach. Vanessa, can you still just see my slide? I lost it for a sec.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, that's good. And then we'll go into the evaluative criteria for CBI next. Of course, we have artistic merit, and that is the quality of the applicant organization's existing programming track record and the degree to which the proposed CBI will improve artistic quality. And then we have impact, that the CBI supports the applicant organization in better meeting its mission. The initiative is likely to make a positive impact on the arts and cultural scene in Ulster County. And the CBI, aka Capacity Building Initiative, I'm abbreviating, directly benefits, involves, and seeks to input from underserved audiences. And then lastly, feasibility, that the Capacity Building Initiative has clearly defined activities, an achievable timeline, and a realistic budget. The applicant organization demonstrates the ability to successfully complete the initiative and meet reporting requirements. Panelists may additionally award 1 bonus point if they feel the initiative is exemplary in any of the above criteria or in meeting the overall program goals. So in summary, before we move on to programmatic support, I'll just summarize. This is your cheat sheet for competitive CBIs, that they have highly feasible initiatives, feasible in the sense that you demonstrate, you map out a plan to do what you say you're going to do within the project period. They're sustainable beyond the project period. They have clearly defined goals, plans to measure success, that the initiative's efforts increase access to arts and cultural programming in Ulster County, and that applications from organizations who have a clearly defined history and commitment to thoughtfully serving historically underserved audience communities in Ulster County, and of course contributes positively to the arts and cultural offerings of Ulster County. So these are all those little cheat sheet bullet points to that really comprise a competitive capacity building application. All right, so next we're going to move into programmatic support, the other funding category. Programmatic support. The objective of this category is to provide support for arts and cultural programming throughout Ulster County that may have a measurable impact on tourism, engage local residents, and or contribute to the vibrant arts ecosystem. So again, I'm just going to reiterate this, that UCCSPF applicants may submit 1 application either for capacity building or programmatic support. Capacity building initiatives are the priority for funding. Programmatic support comprises 30% of the available funding. So again, capacity building is going to be the less competitive. All grants are competitive. They're all competitive, but you have more chance of being funded with capacity building than programmatic support. That said, you please apply for the initiative that really best meets your needs, and then hit it out of the park with an excellent application. So programmatic support, other key details. The funding amounts range from $1,000 to $5,000, and with this one too, there is no cash match required. We want to see established nonprofit arts organizations or artistic programs that have been in existence for 3 or more years and have a record of success, and of course, individuals and unincorporated groups may apply with a fiscal sponsor. And organizations working in all expressive artistic mediums are eligible. This includes, but is not limited to, visual, performing, written, digital, traditional, and experimental mediums. So eligible applicants must be registered 501c3 nonprofit organizations which identify the arts and or cultural services as a primary activity in the organization's mission. Applicant organizations must be incorporated in Ulster County, have at least 3 years of programming history, and have a board of directors or other governing body that meets to determine policy. They must have a non-discrimination policy in place and may not discriminate on the basis of race, color, national origin, religious belief, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, or disability. A lot of parallels from CBI. They must be in adherence to the Nonprofit Revitalization Act of 2013. And this is one factor that distinguishes programmatic support from CBI. Individuals and unincorporated groups may apply to the programmatic support category with a fiscal sponsor, which meets the above criteria for nonprofits. Direct applications from individuals or unincorporated groups will not be accepted. So if an individual or unincorporated group wants to apply with a fiscal sponsor, that fiscal sponsor would need to be a nonprofit that meets all of the same eligibility requirements as a nonprofit applying directly to programmatic support. And we'll go into this a little more here. If a individual or unincorporated group is applying with a fiscal sponsor, the nonprofit fiscal sponsor would in this case be the legal applicant. A fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit organization, in case you're not familiar, that agrees to extend its nonprofit status to an individual artist or unincorporated group. The project must take place in Ulster County, and the sponsored individual group must be based in Ulster County. And I'm just going to make this real easy for you. If you're a nonprofit who wants to apply, you need to either you have to have residency and or be incorporated in Ulster County. And that applies for if you're a individual artist or an incorporated group as well. And that also applies if you're thinking of being a fiscal sponsor. So name of the game, you got to be residing in Ulster County to apply for this grant. And then nonprofit organizations may submit directly. So this is a nice little nuance. Nonprofit organizations may submit directly, and they can serve as a fiscal sponsor for one additional project for programmatic support. So that's a nice little nuance. And then so the paperwork wise, you would need to include a letter of agreement signed by the fiscal sponsor if you're going the fiscal sponsor route. And there is a letter of agreement copy on our landing page for this grant. Let us know if you have any trouble finding it, but it is on the website. Let's go into ineligible applicants. Really, a lot of the same parallels as the capacity building. Public school, the following applicants are ineligible: public school districts and their components, college and universities and their supporting foundations, units of government, government agencies, libraries, and social service organizations. Entities incorporated as an LLC or for-profit corporations and applicants who are applying on behalf of an LLC's programming are ineligible. And organizations or groups that have not submitted the requisite reports on prior funded activities to Arts Mid-Hudson are ineligible. And again, this is a time of year. I know we had some people join us. This is a time of year when a lot of reports are due, and I would hate for not being on top of your reports to be a factor in not being able to apply for this grant. If you're anyway unsure, please check with us to make sure you're in compliance. And then that way you won't have spent all the time filling out a brilliant UCCSPF application only to have it vetoed because you didn't submit a report on time or you didn't reach out to us for an extension. Reaching out to us for an extension is often an option. So please explore that if you haven't yet. And then lastly, Arts Mid-Hudson staff and board members are ineligible applicants. Projects that propose to pay Arts Mid-Hudson staff and board members are also ineligible. Okay, so some examples of eligible programmatic support requests include, but are not limited to, arts exhibitions, performances such as concerts and live theater, presentations such as film screenings or readings, arts and/or cultural festivals, and other unique experiences and interactive activities. A key tenet of the programmatic support funding is that funded programs must be open to the general public. Funded programs must be open to the general public. So to give more detail on this, in the case of workshops, for example, and participatory projects, and this is in the guidelines, but I'll spend some time on it now. Participant recruitment must be open to the general public and reflected accordingly in outreach and promotional plans. And if appropriate, workshops and participatory projects may place age and skill level restrictions on participation in the project. So yes, it's open to the public, but if you're planning on offering programming for a specific age group, we understand that that's going to create some restrictions. And then of course you want to show a solid marketing plan for how you're going to attract that age group to your programming. Of course, targeting underserved audiences is a big part of this. We encourage outreach to groups with limited access due to race, location, economic status, disability, just to name a few examples. And of course, a big part of being successful with inclusive programming is engaging in active feedback with the group you want to engage. So rather than guessing what a group wants, or maybe doing some research online about what a group might want, we recommend you really starting early with this process, engaging the group you want to work with in the planning process, or describing in your proposal how you will seek and apply their input. Of course, we need to close the loop with applying their input in addition to asking for it to reinforce trust, and overall long-term impact of the program. And then, of course, accessibility. This is another thing that often comes up when providing panel feedback. Priority is given to ADA compliant locations and temporary accessibility measures. So are we going to say no, if you are not ADA compliant, you are ineligible? No, but you will be more competitive if your venue is ADA compliant, and that you have either permanent or temporary accessibility measures in place. To go into more detail about this, priority will be given to activities that take place in locations that are fully compliant with the American Disabilities Act, ADA, Section 504. Priority may also be given to activities that include additional methods to make the arts accessible to audiences, or plan for temporary measures necessary to make sites accessible. And this number is in the guidelines in case you need to obtain more information. And you can run these factors past us during draft reviews and TA appointments as well. Some expense priorities for programmatic support. To really delve into this, artist fees are really, we mentioned them first, like these aren't one bullet point on the slide is not more important than the other. At the same time, I will say that in alignment with Arts Mid-Hudson's vision, we are committed to playing a central role in supporting and promoting all of the arts in the communities we serve. And we know that compensating artists a fair wage is a key way we achieve these goals. So paying artists is a major focus and priority for funding across all of our funding opportunities, including UCCSPF. Just it's something to keep in mind. And then other priorities that are just as important include marketing expenses, consumable art supplies, and efforts to increase accessibility. Every funding cycle, there's one or two that include food as an expense, and food is, I wish we could, but we can't. Food, we cannot fund food. So just save yourself the trouble and make sure that food is not in your budget. So to go over the evaluation criteria for programmatic support, artistic merit is, of course, the first one. Again, we've got some parallels with CBI, taking into consideration the project design, proposed artists, audience experience, and organization's past activities. And you'll notice the verbiage is a little different with programmatic than it is with CBI here. The artistic merit, is worded a little bit differently here than it is with the others. Let's see, and then impact. The project is likely to make a positive impact on the arts and cultural scene in Ulster County. The project directly benefits residents, visitors, and includes groups who do not typically engage with arts and cultural programming. The project creates a new program, fosters an emerging arts discipline, or increases opportunities for artists. And then feasibility. The project has clearly defined activities, an achievable timeline, and a realistic budget. The applicant organization demonstrates the ability to successfully complete the initiative and meet the reporting requirements. And then panelists may award one bonus point if they feel the project is exemplary in any of the above criteria or in meeting the overall goals for this program. So this is your cheat sheet for competitive programmatic support requests. A reminder that this funding option is going to be a bit more competitive than the CBI one. 30% of overall UCCSPF funding is available for programmatic support. So of course, a competitive applicant is going to have a track record and commitment of organization, to reach underserved audiences through thoughtful outreach and relevant programming. Competitive applicant will have a strong marketing and promotion plan, the ability to monitor and report on program goals, outcomes, and attendance, and that the project contributes positively to the arts and cultural offerings of Ulster County. Okay, so now we're going to go into some submission tips that are applicable to both capacity building and programmatic support. So we spent some time really delving into each of them individually, and now we're going to go back to the information I'm sharing is going to apply to both now for the remainder of this presentation. Okay, so submitting a grant proposal. All grant proposals must be submitted online only. We only take applications online via Submittable by Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. to this URL. If you have any trouble finding it, just let us know. But it is on the landing page on our website for the UCCSPF grant. If at any point you require assistance in completing the online submission form, please feel free to contact us in advance of the deadline. We never turn away support in advance of the deadline. That said, the sooner you reach out to us for support, the easier it is going to be to help you. So I'll just do with that information what you will. And then, and you know where to find our materials. And then supplemental documents, let's talk about those. Both funding opportunities are going to give you the opportunity to upload supplemental materials. Some are required and some are optional but highly recommended for submission. Of course, you're going to be asked for your staff list, your board list, your organization's annual budget for your most recent fiscal year, the nonprofit and financial documents, and that may include the CHAR 500, the Form 990, and or the independent public accountant's opinion, depending on the organization's gross annual revenue. As one of the first steps to preparing this application, I recommend going through your files for your organization and really making sure that you have this documentation ready to go and updated. And if you don't, now is in June, when we're talking in June, is a great time to get all these documents teed up. It's just really breaks my heart, when someone reaches out to me the day before it's due to say, oh yeah, we don't have our CHAR 500 yet, but you've spent all this time preparing the application. Yeah, don't do that to yourself. Now's a great time to start teeing up all that documentation. Give yourself the gift of peace of mind. And then supplemental materials are optional, but they're highly recommended. And these can be artifacts really showing, and we ask for supplemental materials, again, for both the capacity building and for programmatic support, really in alignment with our evaluation criteria. So these can show, really, you want to show whichever, in terms of materials submitted, of course, please feel free to ask the grants team if you're not sure what to submit. We're happy to provide recommendations and provide our thoughts based on what's going to be most competitive for given these guidelines. But you definitely want to submit materials that really are relevant to your proposal's direction. Relevancy is going to make you the most competitive. You really want to submit materials that directly relate or are supportive of whatever initiative or project you're asking funding for. That's going to lead to the highest score for the panel. And also materials that really put your best foot forward, that are of high quality, that really show the panel, that help them understand, what your organization is about, what it is you do. High quality videos, high quality photos, testimonials, letters of commitment, letters of support from local stakeholders that are relevant to the work you do, are all examples of supplemental materials that can really help an organization put their best foot forward. And of course, with CBI, we talked about materials that really support your ask, such as job descriptions, resumes if you're hiring staff, et cetera, quotes if you're asking for equipment. And so you can upload up to 10 files here. We take JPEG, MP4, PDF, and MP3 accepted. And a limit of 3 additional documents may be included in a separate upload, which you'll see in the application. All applications can be found at the following link. In the landing page, there's also a link to access the application as well. So you can access the application today, and you can start filling it in today if you want. Here are some application tips. So definitely you'll want to answer the questions directly and succinctly within the word limit, and we give a pretty generous word limit. And then you'll want to provide specifics to help the panel understand the scope of the project and depth of planning. And then, of course, you want to write for someone who knows nothing about you or your project. And we'll go into the panel process in a minute. But the panels that when we assemble the panels, we really do our best to assemble panelists, really get panelists together to review this grant that really are representative of not only the Ulster County community of the nonprofits applying, but also the artistic disciplines and subject area of the applicants. That being said, not every panelist is going to, nor should they be expected to, have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single topic that will be covered in every single application. And they shouldn't have to. A strong application is going to be really show very clear and appropriate level of background to help a panelist understand what's being asked. And really clear goals that show what you're going to do. A panelist does not need to be a expert in photography to understand that you have clear goals and metrics for your photography related project. So it really is on the applicant to provide a sufficient level of detail to help the panelists understand what it is that you are trying to achieve with this project, and that it is going to be feasible and that it's going to be impactful. And then, of course, the artistic merit is, that's your programmatic history that you show in your, your organizational background, that you show in your uploaded supplemental materials. So you really want to, that's really in a very high level nutshell, how you write for someone who knows nothing about you or your project within the parameters of this proposal. Of course, you want to show evidence of the evaluative criteria. You want to reference the goals of the funding program throughout to show awareness of, throughout this presentation, throughout the guidelines, we've really done our best to show what the priorities are for this grant, what's important. We know it's inclusion, we know it's the evaluative criteria. And so you really want to show an understanding of these priorities reflected in the narrative that you write and in the materials that you upload. And these are all tips that really help you control the review discussion. If you have provided a clear picture of the project that you want to do, that you want to achieve, that is supported by the uploaded materials, that you're probably, the panelists probably aren't going to have to ask a lot of follow-up questions or do a lot of back and forth between the different materials to really understand what it is you're trying to do, and you're more likely to have a higher score. There's a very simple formula: clarity equals higher score in general. And then budget's a very big part of this because the money really, the budget really shows the panel how feasible this is. So of course I often recommend really thinking about the budget and working on the budget before the narrative for this reason, because the budget acts as a roadmap for the rest of the application. At the end of the day, you really can't do this project, or it would be very difficult to do this project without the proposed funds. And showing a clear plan for how you're going to use those funds is the most clear indicator beyond any words you could say that your project is going to be feasible. The explanation column, if you've seen our application before, or if you haven't, there is a grid where you're going to put in your budget numbers. It's towards the middle of the application. And we recommend including, really erring on the side of being more detailed than less detailed in case the panel has questions about how you're going to use these funds. And one way to do that is to use the explanation column. Use this column to detail how you reached your numbers. If, for example, if what you're asking for is artist fees, we recommend breaking down how you got to those fees. Are those fees going to be per diem? Are they, if you're paying an artist, for example, $1,000 for to participate in a program, to perform in a festival, for example, is that $1,000 going to be just for that one day, or is it going to be two payments of $500 over 2 days? These are details that are really important to the panel, and they show that sound use of funds. And then, of course, you want to make sure that your total expenses equal your total income, which includes the grant request. You really want to make sure that everything adds up with your budget. If you're in any way unsure about putting together your budget, that can be part of the draft review. When you ask for a draft review, we really strongly, you don't have to have a perfect draft when you reach out for a draft review, by the way, but we do recommend filling out as much as you possibly can. And if you fill out the budget too as part of the draft review, that really gives the grants team, a very clear picture of your project. Yeah, definitely ask us to review a draft of your budget, and then we can cross-reference it against your proposal narrative, your project description, to really see that if the budget and narrative align in what you say and in the numbers that you quote. I want to spend a little time talking about the peer panel review process, because I do get a lot of questions about who decides how funding is allocated. This is a really important information to share, so I'm going to go into some detail about it. So here's how the panels work, who decides who gets funded for this grant. And really it works this way for all of our grants. So funding requests are reviewed using a peer panel evaluation process. The peer panel is comprised of artists, arts and nonprofit workers, and community members who come together as a group on a specific day, and they're provided the materials, your application materials, weeks in advance, so they can really give it a thorough review. So they come together to evaluate the funding, your proposals, and they recommend a level of funding based on the overall UCCSPF goals, evaluation criteria, and adherence to these guidelines. The panelists are coached on providing a fair and objective assessment of the proposals. They are given a full, deep understanding of Arts Mid-Hudson's mission, of the mission and priorities of whichever funder is we are regranting the funds from, in this case, Ulster County government. And so we really make sure that the panel has as deep of an understanding of this funding opportunity as the grants team does, because it's critically important when we're allocating these important funds. Arts Mid-Hudson staff and board, this includes the grants team, Vanessa and I, we do not have a vote in this process. We do not decide who gets funded. We simply facilitate the process. The peer panel review decides what gets funded. By the way, we are always looking for peer panelists. So if you know someone who does not plan on applying to this funding opportunity, but is also based or is richly engaged in Ulster County as an arts and cultural worker or an artist, I would love to hear from them, and you're more than welcome to ask them to reach out to us at grants@artsmidhudson.org. Being a panelist is a wonderful way to become a better grant writer. I honestly can't think of a better way to really master the skill of grant writing than to be on the other side of the table. A lot of panelists tell me that. And so a good thing to know is that your reporting history as an applicant is potentially available to the panelists if they ask for it, if it becomes relevant to the discussion. Upon request, panelists will be provided with reports, prior panel comments, and correspondence when considering organizations that have been previously funded. Panels change every year. So the group of panelists that reviews these grants is going to be different from, or a different combination of people from the folks who reviewed last year's 2025 UCCSPF. And we do this to ensure a democratic variety of opinions and to avoid even the possibility of any recurring biases. And of course, this is true for every grant, but prior funding does not guarantee continued support. And that's why we really spend, a lot of time and energy, really helping applicants understand the guidelines, offering up technical assistance. You could do, it's important to know that even if you don't get the funding and even if you do your best, there are usually ways that can be improved upon that can really be applied to future funding opportunities. So, sometimes it's just not your year. Sometimes the year it's just there's more competitive applicants. And, after a funding cycle, we, the grants team, have the insight to really share and help applicants understand, okay, here's how you can be prepared for the next funding cycle based on what we observed this previous one. Either way, it's a learning opportunity. I like to think that no effort has been wasted when you've learned something. And then before the peer panel review meeting, this is good for you to know as well in case it comes up. Funding proposals are reviewed by the Arts Mid-Hudson Grants team, Vanessa and myself, for eligibility, completeness, and accuracy. And it is the applicant's responsibility to submit a complete and accurate funding proposal. But that being said, as part of the review process, one of us may reach out to you by telephone or email to clarify and review information or to ask for missing information. I'm almost done, and then we'll go into the Q&A. And here are some final tips to leave you with as you embark on your applications. First of all, if you find that you need a fiscal sponsor, if you're coming here as an individual or representing an unincorporated group, we often find that securing a fiscal sponsor tends to be the most time-consuming factor in preparing an application. And oh boy, I feel like it just breaks my heart when someone reaches out to me 2 days before the application's due, telling me they need a fiscal sponsor, because I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, that's probably not going to happen with 2 days left. And if it does, that is a miracle. So yeah, now if that's you, now is a great time to be thinking about, okay, which nonprofits in Ulster County align with what I'm trying to do, have prominent arts and culture in their missions, maybe folks I already know, and all right, so I want to start connecting with them. I'm going to be calling them, I'm going to be shooting them an email, and I'm going to be, getting them to fill out that letter of agreement, really at the top of the funding cycle. So yeah, give yourself the gift of peace of mind if that's you, and I would initiate that process, this week or next. And then of course, we really do our best to be as detailed as possible in these info sessions and in the drop-in Q&A sessions that are going to be taking place in the coming weeks. At the same time, that is not a substitute for reading and digesting the guidelines. Definitely take the time to read and understand the guidelines. A lot of points deductions are often due to the fact that aspects of the guidelines weren't adhered to, that ineligible expenses were included in the budget. And these are easy fixes that don't feel bad if you make them. Everyone makes mistakes, but these are easy fixes that, you have time now that we're talking in June to get ahead of them. Definitely organize digital copies of all the required attachments. If you know you want to include videos as your supplemental materials, I would start polling your team for those videos now, instead of waiting until 2 days before it's due. And then you don't know if you're going to have those videos or not. And then you may need to rely on less recent and less impactful supplemental materials. So again, give yourself the gift of peace of mind. Start asking around for those materials if you don't already have them, to have them all ready to upload. At any time, you can make an appointment with Arts Mid-Hudson. You know where the link is, and let us know if you can't find it. And like I said, we provide technical assistance and or draft reviews to anyone who asks for them. You can even call us with questions. You're a lot more likely to reach us if you make an appointment, because it does get busy around here. But and don't get discouraged if it takes a couple of tries, because like I said, it does get busy around here, but we are committed to assisting anyone who reaches out, regardless of how many times you've been rejected. We help everyone who reaches out, and we give the same level of service and attention to everyone who reaches out. So please don't deny yourself the gift of an extra set of eyes. These dates for the Zoom Q&A sessions are on our website, but I'm including them here too. The first one is next Tuesday at 11 a.m. with Vanessa. So definitely, please attend those. They are very informal. You do not have to have all your ducks in a row to attend these. But these are great opportunities to just ask those like tiny lingering questions that maybe you think are stupid, but I promise there are no stupid questions. And then Yeah, that's our presentation. So again, I'm Laura Doe, Grants Manager, and joining me is Vanessa Capuccio-Bear, our funding coordinator. You can reach us at grants@artsmidhudson.org. We both monitor that inbox, so you're going to hear from either of us. And you can call us at 845-454-3222, extension 11.